Welcome back, learner. I want you to just close your eyes for a second and imagine attending a lavish, highborn wedding right in the heart of Westeros.
Oh, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. So the wine is flowing, the lutes are playing, the roasted boar is carved, and there's even the promise of this priceless ancient artifact going to the winner of the grand tourney.
Sounds like a pretty incredible party, honestly.
Exactly. I mean, to the untrained eye, it is just the absolute pinnacle of aristocratic safety and celebration. But, and this is where it gets crazy, as you look around the Great Hall, reading the banners and watching the way the lords are, whispering behind their velvet sleeves, you realize something terrifying.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Every single guest in this castle is a traitor.
Wow.
And they are all just sitting there smiling, just waiting for the signal to plunge the entire continent into a ruthless civil war.
It is such a chilling scenario.
Yeah.
And I think it forces us to completely reevaluate how we view conflict in these histories.
Oh, totally.
Because we are so conditioned by the grand narratives. To think that rebellions are decided on these open battlefields with roaring dragons and tens of thousands of men clashing in the mud.
Like the big cinematic battles?
Exactly. But the true existential threats to the Iron Throne, well, they're almost always fought in the shadows.
Right.
They're waged in crypts, funded by secret ledgers, and honestly, they're often won or lost before a single banner is ever officially raised.
Which is exactly why we are taking a deep dive into the archives today. We're examining exactly that kind of shadow war. We're unearthing the Dragon Egg conspiracy and what is widely known as the Second Blackfire Rebellion.
Yes, a fascinating piece of history.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission today isn't just to, recount who stabbed who. We are here to figure out how the survival of the entire realm rested not on a legendary general, but on a penniless hedge knight, a bald boy carrying a lethal secret, and this is the best part, a spy master who is sitting at the enemy's table the entire time.
It really is unbelievable. But to understand the sheer brilliance of this trap, we first have to look at the political powder keg of the year 211 AC.
Right, lay the groundwork for us.
Yeah, so we have to see how the conspirators exploited the very structure of Westerosi society.
Yeah.
If you read the letters from the archmaesters of the time, the realm is technically ruled by King Aerys, the first Targaryen.
Technically being the operative word there.
Exactly, because the historical sources universally paint Aerys as a ruler who is just completely check out.
Yeah, he was just reading all day.
Pretty much.
Oh.
He was buried in ancient scrolls and prophecies. So he left the actual governance to his hand, Lord Bloodraven.
And anyone who follows this dark fantasy lore knows exactly who Lord Bloodraven is.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the albino sorcerer, the master of whisperers who operates a surveillance state so pervasive that the Smallfolk literally say he has 1,000 eyes and one.
It's terrifying. But what's fascinating is how the rebel lords attempt to bypass that exact surveillance state.
Right, because how do you plan a massive coup when the government sees everything?
Exactly. They need to gather all their co-conspirators in one place to launch the rebellion.
Yeah.
But moving armies or, holding secret councils would instantly alert Bloodraven's spies.
Which brings us to the genius of the traitor's tourney at Castle Whitewalls.
It's so clever.
It is. The conspirators use a wedding as a plausible pretext. Lord Ambrose Butterwell is marrying a daughter of House Frey.
A classic political move.
Right. By hosting this grand wedding and attorney, they have an entirely legal, socially bulletproof excuse to gather dozens of heavily armed, disgruntled lords in one highly fortified location.
It is an absolute masterclass in plausible deniability. I mean, how can the crown arrest them? They are just attending a wedding.
It's a harmless celebration. And then, into this incredibly dangerous viper's nest wanders Ser Duncan the Tall and his squire, Egg.
Just looking for a hot meal.
Exactly. We all know Dunk's usual struggle as a hedge knight, but put him in the context of 211 AC. His flea-bottom background isn't just flavor text here. It's the exact blind spot these highborn Blackfire conspirators possess.
Oh, that's such a good point. They completely underestimate him.
They don't even see him as a threat. And we know Egg's massive secret, right? He's a Targaryen prince of the blood, literally shaving his head to hide that famous silver gold hair. And these two just stumble directly into the most dangerous room in the continent.
And the bait that pulls them into this trap is the tourney's prize. A literal fossilized dragon egg.
Oh, man. Just casually offering up a dragon egg.
Right. The sources describe it as shimmering, deep blood red and obsidian. It is a priceless artifact of the Targaryen dynasty. But the allure of the prize vanishes the moment Egg starts reading the heraldry hanging in the Great Hall.
This is where I got chills reading the source material. This is where the subtlety of Westerosi heraldry becomes a mechanism of life and death.
Yes, because heraldry isn't just decoration for these people, right? It's a covert language.
Exactly. Egg looks at the shield of Lord Gorman Peak. It displays 3 black castles on an orange field. But the bitter irony is that House Peak only owns 1 castle now.
Right, they lost the other 2.
Yeah, they were stripped of 2 of their ancestral seats by the Iron Throne 15 years prior. And why? Because they fought against the royal family in the First Blackfire Rebellion.
So displaying all 3 castles is basically...
It's essentially a dog whistle to all the other traitors in the room.
It really is a profound act of defiance, just hidden in plain sight. And as Egg scans the room, he realizes that almost every single lord present shares that exact same history.
Yep.
They are all veterans of the failed rebellion. The entire guest list is composed of men who despise the Targaryen crown and want their lost lands back.
So, learner, I really want you to put yourself in Dunk's rusted steel boots for a second.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It really is. You are stranded inside the white walls of a castle, completely surrounded by powerful men who actively want to exterminate the royal family. And your squire is the grandson of the very king they want to overthrow.
If they realize who Egg is, it's over.
You are both dead instantly. So, do you flee into the night, abandoning this priceless dragon egg? Or do you stay, risking your life in a room full of traitors?
It is an agonizing dilemma, but honestly, the choice is taken out of Dunk's hands almost immediately.
Yep.
Because of the sheer arrogance of the rebellion's central figure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Traveling with the bitter Lord Peak is this guy calling himself John the Fiddler.
Quote-unquote John the Fiddler.
Right. He claims to be a humble, wandering hedge knight. But the logistics of his disguise are laughably bad. I mean, he is wearing a rich, silk-brocaded doublet.
Which is ridiculous for a hedge knight.
Exactly. We know the economics of Westeros. A wandering sword for hire could never afford fine silk. It was a glaring operational security failure.
Totally.
Yet he is charismatic, universally deferred to by all these high lords, and weirdly enough, he takes an intense, immediate liking to Dunk.
Yeah, and on the night of the bedding ceremony, the fiddler actually pulls Dunk aside onto this dark, candlelit balcony, and he just starts speaking in prophecies.
As you do at a wedding.
Right. He claims his dreams always come true. He tells Dunk that he dreamed of him wearing the pure white armor of the Kingsguard.
Which is wild for a hedge knight from Flea Bottom to hear.
And even more dangerously, he tells him he dreamed that a mighty dragon would hatch right there at White Walls.
And he isn't speaking metaphorically about the egg on the table.
No, not at all.
Because beneath that silk doublet, John the Fiddler is Daemon II Blackfire.
The White Dragon himself.
The son of the rebel king who died 15 years ago. He has crossed the narrow sea in absolute secret to launch a second war.
And this entire tourney is rigorously scripted around him. The plan is to rig the jousting so Daemon wins every single tilt.
Which is just so arrogant.
It is. They want to present him to the realm not just as a king, but as this invincible warrior, like an avatar of the warrior god himself. And once he proves his martial prowess, they will hand him the dragon egg, crown him, and declare open rebellion.
And this is where the dark lore just gets so incredibly messy, the conspirators bungle the execution completely.
Oh, they mess it up so badly.
Before they can even crown Daemon, the priceless dragon egg goes missing. It is stolen straight out of the royal vault. And this supposedly flawless, airtight conspiracy just devolves into sheer, unadulterated panic.
And I think this reveals a really crucial psychological flaw in the conspirators.
How so?
Well, when their grand design fractures, they abandon all logic and just turn to horrific, clumsy violence. Lord Gorman Peak, who is supposed to be the mastermind, desperately needs a scapegoat.
Right, to keep the lords from turning on each other.
Exactly, to keep his fragile alliance of paranoid lords together. So he frames a young, innocent bastard named Sir Glendon Ball.
Okay, hold on. I have to ask, if Peak is supposed to be this seasoned political architect, the guy who orchestrated a massive secret rebellion right under the king's nose, why does he bungle this investigation so badly? Why target Glendon Ball specifically?
It's a great question. And it's because plotting in peacetime is very, very different from managing a live crisis. Peak targets Ball because a bastard has no political backing. In the Westerosi justice system, true-born lords will always close ranks against a bastard.
That makes a dark kind of sense.
If Peake accused another lord of stealing the egg, it would start a literal blood feud inside the castle walls.
Right, they tear each other apart.
Exactly. So by choosing the most vulnerable person in the room, a boy with no powerful family to defend him, Peake thinks he's preserving the alliance. He has the boy brutally tortured to extract a false confession. It's just a desperate, tyrannical move to cover up his own glaring incompetence.
But here's the thing. While Peake is up in the towers trying to play like 4D political chess, the real danger is happening down in the mud.
Yes, the human element.
Because you can plan a rebellion down to the last sword, but you can never account for human irrationality. Case in point, Sir Cockshaw.
Oh, Cockshaw. What a disaster.
Right. So the tension of the stolen egg spills out into the dark courtyards. Dunk is out there searching for Egg, who has basically vanished in all the chaos. And suddenly, a dagger flashes in the dark. Dunk is ambushed by Cockshaw, who is this highborn retainer.
And the motive here is what is just so completely shocking.
It completely threw me. You would assume Cockshaw is assassinating Dunk because he figured out the conspiracy, right? Or maybe because he recognized Egg as a Targaryen.
Which would make sense politically.
But no.
Yeah.
According to the historical sources, Cockshaw is deeply romantically obsessed with Demon Blackfyre.
Yeah.
He literally paid a grifter, the Snail Knight, to murder Dunk in the joust earlier. And when that failed, he ambushed Dunk himself out of pure venomous jealousy.
Wild.
He was just infuriated that Daemon was fascinated by this unrefined hedge knight. It had absolutely nothing to do with politics. It was a petty crime of passion right in the middle of a treasonous plot.
It perfectly illustrates how fragile these grand conspiracies really are. I mean, a decade of planning can be derailed by a single jealous courtier throwing a tantrum.
Totally.
But Cockshaw severely miscalculates his target here. He expects Dunk to fight like a chivalrous tourney knight.
Which he definitely doesn't.
No.
Dunk was raised in the brutal slums of Flea Bottom. When he is cornered in the dark, he doesn't care about honor. He relies on raw street survival instincts.
That's so visceral.
Bleeding from a slash arm, Dunk just grabs a rock, bashes the highborn assassin in the face, and literally throws him down a well.
Brutal.
It is an incredibly desperate fight, but Dunk is bleeding out. And just as he is losing consciousness in the shadows, another hedge knight they had befriended, Sir Maynard Plum, steps out of the dark.
And this is where the lore drop just breaks your brain. Plum treats Dunk's wounds, casually mentions that he knows exactly who Demon Blackfyre is, and then drops a massive revelation.
Oh, man.
Plum states that he is an agent of the king's hand.
Right.
But if we analyze the broader lore and the timeline of these texts, the consensus among fantasy historians is that Plum was not just an agent.
No.
Plum was Lord Bloodraven himself,
It's insane.
using a dark magic glamour to disguise his pale skin and his red eye.
It's exactly like playing a game of chess, and you think you have this solid strategy against your opponent, but your opponent is so far ahead of you that he is literally sitting on the board.
Disguised as a pawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Disguised as one of your own pawns, just watching you make every single move.
And not only is he playing as a pawn, he's actively whispering terrible advice to the enemy's king while doing it. Bloodraven's omniscience just creates a suffocating atmosphere of paranoia.
But wait, hold on. I have to push back on Bloodraven's strategy here for a second.
Sure, what's the issue?
If Bloodraven was there the whole time in disguise, why on earth did he let it escalate to this point? Why risk a royal prince's life, Egg's life, and let this dangerous tourney play out when he could have just poisoned Demon Blackfyre's wine on the very first night and been done with it?
It's a fair question, but you have to think like a spy master. Because a premature assassination only treats the symptom, not the disease.
Okay, explain that.
If Bloodraven simply murdered Demon in his sleep, the Blacksire cause would still live on. The disgruntled lords would just pack up, retreat to their castles, claim innocence, and wait another 10 years to find a new figurehead.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Bloodraven needed the conspiracy to mature. He needed every single traitor to publicly declare their hand, to commit the treason openly, so he could legally crush the entire network all at once.
Wow. That makes a terrifying amount of sense. He was basically using Daemon as bait to catch the real architects like Lord Peake. And while Bloodraven is manipulating this grand board from the shadows, Dunk's 10-year-old squire is fighting a completely different kind of war inside the castle. Ed is waging a psychological battle.
He really is.
Yeah.
Egg pulls off a maneuver that relies entirely on understanding the mechanics of power.
It's brilliant.
He corners the host of the wedding, Lord Ambrose Butterwell. Now, the master's accounts describe Butterwell as a man who built his fortune on hedging bets, right? A man absolutely terrified of committing to a losing side.
A total coward, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Egg, who is just a 10-year-old boy, looks up at this powerful lord, reveals his golden Targaryen signet ring, and lies with absolute chilling conviction.
He claims to be a royal spy. He tells Butterwell that his father, the fierce Prince Maekar, is already marching on Castle White Walls with a massive, unstoppable royal army.
The audacity of it.
Right, and Butterwell, who is already panicking because the dragon egg is missing, instantly folds. He just renounces the entire rebellion on the spot because of a child's bluff.
It works so well because Egg understands that power resides where men believe it resides. He projects the illusion of overwhelming, inevitable royal authority.
Yeah.
Butterwell doesn't see a bald boy in that moment. He sees the crushing weight of the Iron Throne, and his resolve just shatters.
Which sets off the incredible climax of the tourney. Dunk, who is wounded and exhausted, bursts into the Great Hall just in time to slay a traitor who is trying to murder Egg.
Just barely in time.
And to buy his squire time to escape, Dunk marches straight up to the high table, covered in blood, and confronts the Black Dragon directly. He demands a trial by combat for the tortured, innocent Sir Glendon Ball.
And Demon Blackfire, being as arrogant as he is, he desperately needs to maintain the illusion that he is an invincible warrior king.
Right, he can't back down.
So he grants the trial. But the battered, tortured Glendon Ball utterly destroys that illusion. He knocks the Blackfire pretender clean off his horse right into the mud.
Yes.
The great warrior king is humiliated in front of the very lords he was supposed to lead.
And the timing is cinematic. Just as the chaos in the dirt reaches its peak, the sun rises over the God's Eye Lake, the war horns blow.
The moment of truth.
The rebel lords rush to the battlements, totally expecting to see Prince Maekar's army, just as Egg had promised. But the reality is far more chilling.
They look out and see 500 lances and 5,000 spears encircling the castle walls. But it isn't Maekar's banner.
No.
It is the white dragon with red eyes. It is Lord Bloodraven. Egg's bluff had become a reality purely by coincidence.
It's wild.
Bloodraven had been moving his forces into position the entire time.
So the grand, sweeping Second Blackfire Rebellion doesn't end with a heroic clash of armies. It ends with a whimper. The rebel lords surrender the moment they realize they are surrounded.
And what's fascinating here is how Bloodraven finalizes his checkmate. Demon Blackfire, who is desperate to salvage a shred of honor and die a hero's death, challenges Bloodraven to a single duel.
A last stand.
But Bloodraven flatly refuses. He doesn't even draw his sword. He simply orders his men to arrest Demon, clapping the would-be king in golden fetters.
Because if he kills Daemon in combat, Daemon becomes a martyr.
Exactly.
He becomes a tragic romantic hero for the next generation of disgruntled lords to rally behind.
Precisely. By keeping Daemon alive as a pampered, pathetic hostage in golden chains, Bloodraven brilliantly denies the rebels their martyr.
Wow.
He completely neuters the emotional core of the movement. He then executes Lord Peak for his treason, systematically stripping the other lords of their wealth and hostages.
Taking away their power.
And as a final, brutal assertion of the crown's power, Bloodraven orders Castle White Walls to be dismantled, stone by stone. He literally erases the fortress from the map and salts the earth.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What is the core takeaway from this labyrinth of betrayals?
That's a big question.
The tragedy of White Walls proves that in the Game of Thrones, true power isn't about roaring armies or honorable combat. True power is the control of information. It's the secrets whispered in the dark, the exploitation of paranoia, and knowing exactly when to let your enemies destroy themselves. And more importantly, it proves that prophecies are incredibly dangerous, double-edged swords.
They really are.
Yeah.
And the historical texts give us Bloodraven's chilling final assessment of Daemon's visions.
Right.
As the white stone walls of the castle were being torn down, Bloodraven admitted that the Fiddler's prophecy was real.
Wait, really?
Yes. Daemon had dreamed that a dragon would be born at White Walls, and Bloodraven smirked, noting that a dragon was born there. The pretender just got the color wrong.
The dragon wasn't the black dragon. The dragon was Egg.
Exactly.
Through his courage, through his brilliant psychological warfare with Lord Butterwell, the boy evolved from a Freyton squire into a true Targaryen prince. And we know from the broader historical archives that Egg eventually grows up to become King Aegon V.
A great king.
He becomes a beloved champion of the Smallfolk, and he names Dunk, the hedge knight from Fleabottom, as the Lord Commander of his King's Guard.
It serves as such a beautiful, triumphant resolution to the terror and paranoia they faced at White Walls.
It is, well, until you look at the final chapters of their history.
Oh, right, the Dark Turn.
Because if there is one rule in these archives, it is that prophecy always demands a blood sacrifice. Years later, King Aegon, that very same boy who survived the traitor's tourney, becomes hopelessly obsessed with the prophecies of his youth.
It consumes him.
He becomes consumed by the idea of bringing real living dragons back into the world to enforce his benevolent rule, and he attempts a desperate, forbidden magic ritual.
A ritual that ends in absolute, unimaginable catastrophe.
What terrifying sorcery did King Aegon attempt that resulted in his entire family burning alive? And how did Dunk's final tragic act in those screaming green flames of Summerhall somehow set the stage for the birth of Jon Snow?
It's a chilling thought.
That is a mystery for another deep dive. Keep your secrets close, and remember the shadows are always watching. And the last thing they heard before the history turned to ash was the deafening, crackling roar of a massive inferno.